So I wanted to follow up with the topic we've been discussing for the past few weeks, which is, a lot of it having to do with depression and having to do with mental health. And, I've talked about it a lot lately, and I'm not really done talking about it because I got more thoughts on it. Of course, a lot of this has to do with my video my last speakdom about Etika. And I actually wanted to say something that I forgot to say in that video. When Etika was, when he was like sort of, when he made those edgy tweets before he, did what he did, and when he was saying stuff like, "Oh, I was just trying to be edgy and this and that," he was just, saying that it was all a prank or whatever. I believe there's a possibility that may have been sort of him having what I call it like a subconscious cry for help. Like he was kind of telling people, "Yeah, I have mental issues," but he was trying to just kind of hide it, sort of like the Robin Williams thing. I mentioned that comparison. Not so much like hide it by saying he didn't have any issues, but more so trying to say, "Oh, it's just a prank." It wasn't like he was trying to purposely hide it. It was more of a subconscious thing. It was like, I'll give you another example of something like this. A lot of times when you have LGBT people who are hiding the fact that they're gay, they will a lot of times pretend to be anti-gay. You've seen guys who are very homophobic and say homophobic things later on in life come out as being homosexual. I've seen it, and it's sort of like that where he's trying to make it into somewhat of a joke, and then it wound up actually being a major problem. I wanted to say that in the video because there's a possibility that could be the case. So if somebody's even joking about suicide, and you know them, it might be a good idea to talk to them a bit more about it and to show that you have concern. Just being real with you. Like, obviously, some folks are going to joke around and make dark jokes and things like that, but if someone's making jokes like that, it could be a subconscious cry for help. So definitely keep your eyes peeled and your ears open for that. But what I wanted to talk about was, I wanted to talk to y'all about this idea of like getting help and seeking out help. And some people manifest this in different ways. You'll have like a Twitter or Instagram or Facebook post that's kind of attention seeking, kind of cryptic. And I talked about how Etika would do a lot of attention seeking behavior, but a lot of it was just kind of seen by the majority of people as Etika being Etika. He's just a comedian, funny guy. It wasn't like he was actually crying for help. But now we know that, he may have been crying for help. He may have been on the edge. He probably was on the edge and just didn't have the comfort level to talk about it until, the very end. And we still don't really know what happened. And I want to tell you that it's never too late to get help. It's never, ever too late to go out there and seek help. If you're feeling down, if you're feeling bummed, not necessarily suicidal, that's not what I'm saying, but if you're feeling, like the walls are coming in on you, which is a very, very, very frequent feeling that a lot of us get, especially those of us with anxiety. And I'm here to tell you, number one, I get that feeling because of my issues that I've had when I was younger, because of a lot of things that happened to me when I was a kid and growing up and being bullied and having to fight on my own and things like that. I do have a high defense level. I'm very much, and I've worked on this, but those of you who have been following me for a really long time, okay, let's say you've been following me and my other channel, and maybe if you're like an old follower from my old podcast days, I used to be a prick, and maybe I still am, but there were times where I would be a prick to people because I had a very short fuse. Like if you were just dumb, or if you caught me in a bad mood, I would be a prick. I've been that way before, and I've worked on being better, and I think I am better now through meditation, therapy, and just kind of growing up, and it's one of those things where I want to tell you that it's something that was brought upon by my own fears and my own trauma. It's like that whole thing where if you get into a car accident, right, let's just say, and you survive, you might have some trauma to where you don't want to ever be in a car or not for a long time. Things like that, PTSD type stuff. And the fact that I was homeless 10 years ago really ramped up my PTSD. I was actually diagnosed with PTSD. So if you're out there and you have that like fear that bad stuff's going to happen to you, you're going to end up homeless or lonely or whatever, you ain't the only one, because I felt that way myself. And it doesn't make you less of a man or less of a woman or less of a trans or whatever you identify as. It doesn't make you less of a human being if you go out and you seek help. And actually, when you really think about it, it makes you more of a man, more of a woman, more of a trans, more of whatever you are. Because and the reason why I say more of a trans, it's not to say that trans people aren't like male, female, I'm just kind of getting everybody in, because I know there's some trans people that don't want to identify as anything, so I'm just throwing you in like, just human being, overall human being. Anyways, it makes you more of a person if you actually come to terms with the fact that you need help. So if you're out there and you need help, and sometimes you might find yourself subconsciously manifesting this cry for help in other ways, in social media, or some people cut themselves. I mean, there's a lot of psychology behind this. I'm not going to get into all of it here. I'm not an expert, but I've read up on it, and it is something that is a serious thing, and you might not even realize it. It could be totally like, the back of your head, subconscious. But if you do come to terms with it and you determine that you do need help, it makes you more of a person, because you have basically been mature enough to understand that you are an imperfect being, that you have an issue and you want to resolve it. And the fact that you have a problem and you realize it, accepted it, and are trying to resolve it, to me makes you a better person than just ignoring it, because ignoring it means that you're being very, ignorant to the situation, and you might not even understand that it could manifest itself in different ways later in life. All my traumas didn't really hit me till I turned 30. When I was in my 20s, I never had depression or anxiety. And then when you hit 30, it all comes to a head. So for me anyways, I have other friends where it was older, or some other friends that was younger. So you might, if you're out there like 22 years old, you might have something wrong. You won't even realize till you're older. And then at that point, it's time to get help. And hopefully by then you'll have, a good career going, to where you can do that kind of stuff. That's one example. Everybody's different. I'm just using one example. So, please don't ever think that it's too late to get help. It's never too late to get help. Never. It is never too late to get help. And seeking help does not make you weak at all, like I said, because what you're actually doing is seeking help is no different than training to get stronger, except you're training your mind and your spirit, where instead of your body. You see what I'm saying? Like, going out there and getting help is no different than looking in the mirror and saying, I'm overweight, I gotta lose weight, or I'm underweight, I gotta gain weight, whatever. There's no difference there, and as far as concept goes, because the concept is you acknowledge there's something about you that you want to improve on, and you go and improve it. It makes you better, and you will be better on the other side. Obviously the extreme case is the people who are genuinely wanting to take their own lives, in which case, you might need more help. That you got to get to the root of what the problem is and why you're feeling that way. And it all depends on what kind of depression you have, whether it be a chemical one, whether it be temporary, permanent, chronic, whatever. You have to figure that out. And even if you do have chronic depression, there are tons of medications and tons of ways around it. And I don't mean just pills. I mean, you can also try, I've heard everything from acupuncture to changing your diet can improve depression. There are lots of very alternative medicine options out there, Eastern medicine, essential oils, different things you can try that might improve your overall body chemistry. These things are real. You just got to look into it. Whatever it takes to not make you think that you have no option but to end your life. You know what I'm saying? That's a really important thing. There's, like I said last Speak Them episode, I guess, there's no, everybody's different, and there's nothing wrong with getting help, because there's no coming back. See what I'm saying? There's no coming back if you do what Etika did. None. And there's people who have made videos analyzing his history and saying that there were other signs that manifested that people just didn't see. And that's the issue, is that you're not really, most of his audience, let's be real, is young, and most of them are not trained psychologists. I mean, I'm not one. There's not many trained psychologists that I know of I don't know that many that watch Etika. Maybe there are, but none of them, I don't recall anybody coming forward saying this guy's got issues to where it became a thing. Maybe now, though, when you look back on his videos after what he did, you're like, oh, okay, maybe that was a clue. Maybe this was a clue. It's scary, to really kind of analyze his body of work and try to find what may have manifested itself in his content, right? But obviously, whatever his issue was is something that started way before YouTube. I'm assuming, I'm guessing this was something that had been deeply rooted in him for quite some time. Because what happens to us is we go through trauma as a child and it manifests later. You know, sometimes I'll give you another good example. I talked about my own PTSD, but a lot of rape victims end up behaving awkwardly in relationships. Either they're too clingy, or they're not clingy enough, or they're abusive, or they're unabusive, or they get abused. It all depends on the person and how their brain sort of creates a schema. That's a scientific psychology term. Creates a schema about how to handle a situation or a specific person. So if you're out there and I'm not saying you guys, but whomever, and you're a rape victim or a victim of sexual assault, you might not want to date men or women, or you might want to be very promiscuous. You know what I mean? It's something that, it doesn't manifest till later in life. It doesn't just happen overnight in most cases. So I'm guessing that with him, he may have had something happen to him when he was younger, you know? And again, we don't even know, because sometimes what happens is our minds suppress memories. Like, there's been cases where people have had trauma happen to them and they don't even remember it, and they only unlock it through stuff like hypnosis and meditation. I don't know if I believe in hypnosis. I've never been hypnotized. I don't know if I really believe in it, but others swear by it, so I'm just going to throw it in there. But, you know, or also through just deep counseling, you know. And again, I know that counseling is not cheap, but if you really are feeling this way, you know, do what you can to get help. It's never too late to get help. And hopefully this video has helped you in a way. And just remember the good things about life. Try to do that. And that might help you get through. So that's it. Thank you for watching. And take care of yourself and each other.